So I'm attending the Mitchell Symposium, and I thought this was a really good opportunity for me to talk about Jim and what Jim meant to me. Jim is actually the reason that I came to Berkeley. I was at Drexel. I graduated in 1988. One of my roommates, Doug Dove, actually went through the program 2 years prior to me. I had won an NSF Creativity Award in undergraduate engineering. I was very interested in environmental cleanup and all of his work related to compacted clay liners and organic fluids and dielectric constants and clay interaction was very intriguing to me. And so when I won this award, I basically could go anywhere I wanted. I came out to Berkeley and then got distracted by Stanford. So I ended up going to environmental engineering program at Stanford, which actually served me tremendously well. And the reason I say that, because I ultimately came back to Berkeley, is one, Stanford's obviously very glitzy. But what I did there at Stanford was I got into the aquatic chemistry, the environmental chemistry, and some geochemistry. And when I came back to Berkeley, because I wasn't very happy there, I met with Jim and Nick Sitar, who I ended up working with, and they brought me in, and I began to work in sort of the very heavy environmental side of environmental geotechnics. So while a lot of folks here at this program had done things related to landfill liners and things like that, I got into sort of hardcore remediation. And so Jim Mitchell ended up, letting me use his lab. He was on my PhD exam committee. And so there's a good story there because, I was in his fundamentals of soil behavior class, which is really, to be quite honest with you, the way that I view the world, because I do environmental forensics, I do hardcore environmental cleanups of some of the worst Superfund sites. And then my other expertise area, which I'm actually more published in, is the beneficial use of industrial byproducts. And so if you don't come from a good fundamentals of soil behavior, perspective, and those basic principles and the curiosity and understanding how to look at these material and take them apart forensically and figure out what's going on mechanistically and chemically, you're kind of dead in the water. And so I've made an entire career on that, 30 years now. This year, in fact, I graduated from Berkeley. And so I've been working in that area and with these principles my entire professional career, and it's served me very well. So some good stories. I was a little arrogant when I was younger, and because I went to Drexel and it's a co-op program, you get a combination of work experience with your degree. In fact, you have to graduate with 18 months of work experience. And so when I came to Berkeley, of course, Jim was very big in case studies and drawing the connection between the principles that he was talking about in the classroom and professional practice. And of course, I had been in professional practice, so I tended to kind of ruin his stories from time to time because I could see the end. And so I'm sure that didn't enamor me very well with Jim. So when I actually sat for my PhD exam, he was one of the persons that put the questions in. And again, I said I was a little arrogant and, a little wild. What happened on that first time I took my PhD qualifying exam was they failed me by a point. And on Jim's response to my question, I had come up with an idea to take basically H piles or pipe piles or whatever, and because of his electrokinetics work, turn those into anodes and electrodes and cathodes to be able to affect soil remediation on a heavily industrial brownfield site or something like that. So the pile didn't just have its geotechnical support, right? It was also being used with a circulating fluid to pull contamination out of the groundwater. And so what really sticks in my mind is Jim writes in his commentary to my question, this is a really interesting idea. I wonder if it's patentable. And so I went back to the committee who failed me by a point to teach me a lesson about humility. And I'm like, but Jim Mitchell says this is probably patentable. Isn't that worth the extra point for me to pass? And they're like, yeah, no. And so that was very humbling. And I actually almost quit because I went through a divorce at the same time. But, it really spoke to his personality. He was very fair. When I took did my PhD proposal, which was to use ethanol to clean up TCE contaminated sand packs. So I have a chemical engineering minor, lots of different stuff going on here, and I had the chemical engineering professor Clay Radke on my committee, And between him, Jim Hunt, Nick Sitar, these guys basically, crucified me in my PhD qualifying exam, to the point that, at the end of the thing, the 3 hours, they could have asked me my name and I wouldn't have been able to tell them what my name was. But I heard them actually laughing after they sent me out, and they passed me, and I missed honors by like a point. And so I went ahead. I ended up teaching at Georgia Tech. I've, like I said, worked in environmental tech, geotechnics. I launched that program at Georgia Tech, which is now being run by Susan Burns. But I always remember sort of the curiosity and the what if questions from Jim. And, he was always ready to listen. He always had, good ideas about how I should be doing my research. And, even though I wasn't one of his PhD students directly, he had a huge impression on me. And really, the Fundamentals of Soil Behavior book was, sort of a real turning point. And the work that he had done in compacted clay liners and things like that really hooked me because of the way he looked at the world, and everything was a puzzle, right? And so I love the part when they were saying today one of his favorite answers or common answers was, I don't know. I mean, that was the thing about Jim. He didn't know, but he wasn't afraid to go look at it. And, that was a big takeaway for me for the entire Berkeley culture. So anyway, there are a lot of luminaries here. I met a lot of brilliant people at Berkeley during my time here, and Jim Mitchell was, at the top of that list. And so I just thought it would be worth sharing my experience here, since it's not sort of the conventional geotech one.